Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. My name is Mr. Moore. I'm the advisor for the Model United Nations Club, and I'm so glad to see this wonderful turnout today. The Model United Nations Club is sponsoring this event, which is all about the World Summit of Nobel Peace Laureates. We are here to learn about this fantastic summit and an opportunity for Rhinebeck High School students to travel to attend this summit. 20 students have been invited to the summit. And it's an extraordinary opportunity, which you're going to learn about today from our friends, our guests from Kingston High School. We have the co-advisors of the International Relations Club, Ms. Lauren Bryant and Mr. Sean Sullivan. And we have, thank you so much. And we have 4 members of the International Relations Club. Today we have with us the president of the club, Anthony Gironda, the vice president, Hunter Reinhardt, and the 2 members, Julia Hack and Isabel Stitt-Friedrichs. Hope I got that right. Okay? So I'll just turn it over to you, and then we'll have additional time for questions, if that's all right?
Sure.
Yeah? Would you like to say a word, or?
Sure. Thank you for having us. I have to tell you, this trip was life-changing from the perspective of a teacher and from a student of global history. I'm going to let our kids take it away. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them as they go. We're just going to sit here and watch you.
So I'm Anthony Gironda. I'm the only senior here. Yeah, I'm going to Northeastern. I'm the president of the International Relations Club. So we're going to walk you through the trip day by day. So 24 Kingston High School students, seniors and juniors. Last November we were invited to the World Summit of Nobel Peace Laureates from David Ives. So basically it all started with an airplane, which was pretty cool for me. I've never been on an airplane before, and I've never been outside the tri-state area. So going across the ocean was pretty crazy and a lot of fun. So we got in Spain at about 7 a.m. Spain time, and I think 1:30 New York time, and none of us slept because we were all so excited. And we were asked a question by our advisors: do we want to go find the hotel and get some sleep, or explore Spain? And it was unanimous. We were to explore the city of Spain. So, great start. Great roaring start. City of Barcelona. So, do we have, yep, there's all of us. Can't really see any of us. We're there. Do we have any pictures of Camp Now? That's where it all started, right? Yep, bus ride there. There you go. So that's Camp Now. That's where, I'm not a big football or soccer follower, but that's where, Barcelona, right? Okay. Apparently that's a big soccer team. I don't know if you guys follow soccer. That was a big deal. That stadium is huge. There was so much to see and there was so much to do. And we walked everywhere. A couple metro rides, but mostly walking. I think we did about 60 miles over our time there. All walking, all sightseeing. So some other stuff we got to see before the conference kicked off. We got to see the Picasso Museum. And I'm not really too much into art. I'm really kind of math and science, but that was really cool to see. And there's a lot of culture that you don't really see and you kind of read about, and you're like, oh, it's different the way they do things over there. But once you're there, it's like, wow, it's crazy. Culture there is so much different, and it is so cool to see. So we got to see the Picasso Museum, and from there, yep, that's day 2. We finally found our hotel. And let's see, day 2 we saw the Sagrada Familia, which was Gaudi's church. It's taken 70 years, and it's still under construction. It's not finished yet. But that was an incredible sight. I think out of everything we saw over the trip, that church was absolutely breathtaking. The amount of art and detail, and just the sheer size. The pictures can't even, it's crazy. It's really hard to describe seeing something like that in person. So from there, we ran back to the hotel, we got our suits on, and we got ready for opening remarks. So I'm going to pass over to Izzy Stitt.
I'm Isabel. And so basically, the opening remarks were before the conference. It was 3 days, and the day before the conference started, not the opening remarks were 3 days, but all the delegations that we brought with Quinnipiac University and some others, David Ives was announcing what we'd be doing, we'd be making our schedules, that sort of thing. When we got there, we realized we were pretty much one of the only high school delegations that were at this. There was one from Paris, but there was only 6 of them. And we got to meet some incredible people. There was people from France, Rome, there were Hawaii, all over the place. So, day 3, once we got tickets inside, and we got to choose, but we didn't get to choose, but it was orange, we would get to sit in the room where the actual laureates were, and blue was we would sit in a separate room and watch it in a video conference. We were able to get into the room with the actual laureates, and we had to listen to them speak one-to-one. And a few of us actually ran into a few of them going to the bathroom. That's always my story. So there's an interesting thing about Barcelona, is that the Catalonian, what would you call them, group, people, they do not state, they don't want to be part of Spain anymore, and so they're trying to break away into their own country, Catalonia. And so they would announce themselves as welcome to Barcelona, Catalonia. But since Barcelona is such an economic hotspot for Spain, it's become this big rivalry between the countries and the people, and it was amazing to see this. It was a very big thing to hold it in Barcelona for them. This was also outside of a hotel. This, in the middle here, he's one of the Children's Peace Prize winners, and he was staying in the hotel with us. And when we say you get to interact with the laureates, you get to interact with them one-on-one, have conversations. It's incredible. Go ahead. Yeah.
Also, she talked about the Children's Peace Prize Award, and Malala actually won that, as well as numerous other awards. So you guys are the Model UN Club, I'm assuming most of you. You guys have been on Model UN trips before and things like that. Well, with all due respect, this is a lot better. Because I've been on those 2, this is way better. You can't even compare it. So we started off our 4th day. We were in this huge 4,000 to 5,000 people auditorium at the Universitat de Barcelona. It was incredible. We got to listen to different panelists. Some of the really noticeable ones were Jody Williams, who's one of the few laureates from the United States, actually from Vermont, which isn't really far away from here at all. Also, Shirin Ebadi was very cool. At the bottom, David Trimble, which you guys probably learned about in European history, the Good Friday Accords and things like that. Oscar Arias, the president of Costa Rica, which is one of the possibilities of where it'll be next year. So he's very excited about hosting that. And then on the end, F.W. de Klerk, who worked alongside Nelson Mandela, who you guys, of course, everybody knows. After they finished talking, it was kind of a mad dash to the stage with people pushing and shoving to get pictures with the laureates. I mean, it wasn't the ideal thing at a Peace Prize, but you gotta do what you gotta do to get a picture. It was ends justify the means, I guess. And then these were really cool. They had private sessions. That right there, that's me. But behind that, the real important guy, that's Lech Walesa. That was Tawako Carmen up top, and you got these cool sessions where it would just be like 15, 20 people, and you got to ask the laureates questions and talk to them, and it was pretty close to one-on-one. It was really cool. I got to ask Lech Walesa a really cool question, who of course was the leader of the Solidarity movement in Poland. And I asked him about his award, and Mikhail Gorbachev, who won the award the same year, who was leader of the Soviet Union. Walesa famously said, "I won the award because I was victorious. Gorbachev won the award because he lost," which is a funny little anecdote to say. Here, these other examples of pushing people away to get pictures. That's Miss McGuire on the bottom, Tawako Carmen again at the top. We also had dinner. It was a really cool experience. The food is really different. If you don't like octopus, if you're more of a chicken kind of guy, stick with chicken. Stick with things that you know you like, but it's very cool to try. I think it's cool to try new things if you're open to things like that. And then the next day was a similar thing, all the laureates on stage. The panels were really cool. Some of us actually got to go speak with the laureates on stage. I and my friend Jada got to go, as well as my friend Belle. It was very cool to be on the stage with those kind of people. So
Talk about how you helped write the sustainable goals.
Oh yeah, we also, the UN publishes 17 sustainable goals for the future, and you get it, and you're not, like, so you guys would be 20, you guys would vote on who your representatives would be. So you would pick 2 people, and then they would go draft this resolution and go on stage. So some of you next year could be on stage with all these laureates, and trust me, it's an incredible experience. This was another mad dash to get pictures, and then thank you guys. Now it's Julia's turn.
Okay, before I start about our 6th day in Barcelona, I just want to mention, since you guys are the Model UN Club, I actually had the opportunity to go to one of the workshops for the United Nations, which only 2 of us from our group got to go because there was I think 3 or 4 really awesome workshops going on at the same time. So you kind of had to pick which one would benefit you the most and stuff. So I chose the United Nations, and I actually got 2nd row, and we talked about the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. And that was a really awesome workshop because most kids in there were from all sorts of different places. I sat next to a girl who was from South Africa, so we kind of got to discuss the differences and the changes that we wanted to make in the world. And also they focused that session not on the laureates themselves, but they focused it on the students. And they actually passed around a microphone for the whole hour-and-a-half session, and they said, what out of the list of 17 goals do you think is the most important, and what do we have to do first in order to make the world a more peaceful place? So I got the mic and I talked about how I thought education was the most important, and that everybody deserves a quality education no matter where you live, what your gender is, none of that stuff matters. Everybody should get an equal opportunity, and I thought that was pretty awesome that I got to say something to laureates and they actually wrote it down and took notes on what all the students were saying. So I think that just kind of describes what kind of summit this is. It's based on the students, and it's based on what we think and what we want to do and what we want to help. So that was really awesome, and I thought you guys would appreciate that one. So on our last day, after the conference was over, here you can see this is the roof of our hotel, which was really awesome, and there was pool up there and stuff that we got to go in and take pictures. So this is it. It was really beautiful, and you had a really awesome view of the city. There it is again. This is a view of the city. So on the last day, we woke up, we got ready, ate breakfast. We're very sad because it was our last day in Barcelona. So we decided just to take a walk up to Montjuïc Hill, which is, you could basically see it wherever you are in the city, and it's right overlooking the water, and on top is a castle, Montjuïc Castle. So we walked up the hill. It's more like a mountain, I would say, definitely not a hill. So we did that, and this was a view this is taken from as we're walking up the hill. Here we are again. This is on top. All sorts of pictures. This is on our way up, and you could, I'll talk about this later when we're on the bottom, but it was really cool. They had all sorts of different paths and things that we could take to go up. So once we got to the castle, it was really beautiful. It's basically what you imagine what a castle would look like, and you walk up to the front, and there's a little bridge that goes down, and we all took pictures in front of it, and 4-year-old me was freaking out, and I had to get my picture taken everywhere, and I had to say, I'm a princess. So we went in there, and we got to tour it, and we walked around. They have a little museum inside, and then we got to walk to the roof of it, which you can see in some of these pictures was from the roof. And it's a giant square, and as you walked around, you got a different view of the city. So you would start, and it's overlooking the Mediterranean Sea, completely. It's stunning. And as you walked around, you got all the beautiful buildings of the city with the sea behind it, so you can see it in the bottom photos. So that was really cool. This is on top of the castle. There's some group shots and stuff, but it was really, really cool. There's all sorts of different spots, and of course we took that to do photo ops. And then after that, I'm not sure the order that this is, but after that we took, I think it was on one of these slides, you can see it here. From on top of the hill, we took a cable car down to the beach. So we were in a little booth with 10 people, and it was going down on the wire, and you could, as you were in the cable car, you can look on either side of you, and it was either the Mediterranean Sea or Barcelona. And it was really cool to be able to get a different view of the city that way. That was really fun. And then we went to the beach, and we went swimming in the Mediterranean Sea, which was really cool, because I had only been in the Atlantic Ocean before. So I had to take, even though it was freezing, a lot of us did swim, and we hung out on the beach for a couple of hours. That was really fun. And then after that, we toured Las Ramblas again and just had fun and walked around, got dinner together, went shopping and stuff. That was really great. And then on our last day, we sadly had to fly back to the United States. So we woke up and we went to the airport, took the bus back, had to go through security and things in Barcelona. And then when we got back, we went through JFK, and then this is us demonstrating how much fun we had on the trip, seeing that we had to sleep the entire way home because we didn't get a lot of sleep during the trip. That's it.
Okay.
Do you guys have any questions or anything?
How'd you guys prep for the trip?
Okay, well, we broke up into different groups, and I did the that's actually a really awesome question. Thank you for asking that. And we broke up into, I was like the chair of the education committee, so we looked up all the living Nobel Peace Laureates, and we studied them. So, you know, you wouldn't want to be in a room and not know who the person was talking about. So being prepared for that is definitely key. You have to know who you're talking about, know who everyone is, especially the ones that really interest you. Like I looked up like Walesa, a lot of people looked up F.W. de Klerk. And then travel-wise, just make sure you have enough like clothes and stuff like that. You guys are probably good with that. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hi, you were talking about the breakout sessions. How was that determined? Did you pick which session you wanted to be in, or did they assign you? And how many kids were there in each session?
Yeah, so basically, the night of the first day we were there, Louis Venturelli, who works with David Ives, came down and there was a link online, and you could choose the sessions that you wanted to go to every day, and they were in the afternoon, and there was about 6 or 7 options, and you wouldn't just be with your delegation, people from it, there was people all over, and you have to interact with everyone, and it could be an individual person. Like I personally had one with Betty Williams, who helped with the Troubles in the 70s in Ireland, but there was people who worked with UN, right? And organizations and with all different delegations.
And how many people were there in each session on average?
About 25. It would definitely, bigger ones, there could be some like 40, but other ones there could be like 10, depending on their popularity usually.
Thanks.
Any other questions? It's definitely worth all the stuff that you have to do to go on the trip. All the essays, definitely worth all of them.
Especially if you're interested in cultures of other countries or politics or law or anything like that, I strongly suggest that you go. It's definitely well worth it.
Anything else?
I'll say something real quick. I've been teaching for 18 years. It was the greatest week of education that I had in my entire life. So I've been teaching for 18 years, and it was amazing to meet the people who I've spent my life teaching about. Are you kidding me? You can't beat that. It was amazing. It was so intense. Then, just the cultural aspect. So wherever this conference is, you will be immersed in the culture of that area. So you're meeting amazing people you've read about in books and watched on television. It is a true once-in-a-lifetime experience that hopefully I get to do again this year. All right, come on, that was an attempt at humor. All right, okay, I'm done. Out.
If any
It's a
of you
great time.
notice that when you go there, you're not very sure about all the laureates, you learn so much that you don't know you're going to learn. I went there and I knew a few laureates, but I didn't know. By the first day, you know all the laureates' name, even if it doesn't seem like you're going to. You know what they've done, you know their organizations, you know how they are as people because they're extremely humble. And also with the culture, just walking through the streets, it's amazing to see the differences. In Barcelona, it's like a cityscape, and then you walk 20 feet, and it's like a movie set with cobblestone streets and tall buildings. It was absolutely gorgeous. And that struggle between the Catalonians and Spain I was speaking about, all over the place. There was flags. It was very, very big movement in Barcelona. It was amazing.
I also think it's worth noting, we were in Barcelona for the Paris peace attacks. We were there on November 13th. So the amazing part about that for our students is that the morning after the attacks, so we were 6 hours ahead, Tawakkol Karman, who won the Nobel Peace Prize for brokering peace in Yemen, gave a speech that morning. And it was probably one of the most powerful things that I've ever heard in my life. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah.
And she essentially spoke about the need to unite and not divide and not to assign blame to any one group and to be very careful to be inclusive and not exclusive. And while I sincerely hope that we are never traveling when there is another terrorist attack, by the way, it was still one of those learning experiences for us to be there and to be in such a powerful environment. Something that our kids have acknowledged and our applications have already been turned in, and as I read through the applications of students who've been in the past, the theme that keeps emerging is that every laureate conveyed to our kids, to you guys, they're nobody special. They're an individual who did something, and that triggered a chain of events that changed the world. And that just because we don't, like Lech Walesa, who was one of Hunter's personal heroes, certainly wasn't some president, lawyer, are you laughing at me?
He took selfies with us on his iPad.
He did. He did. He had an iPad and he kept like scanning the audience with it and then like turning around. It was awesome. So the point is, it's you leave not only feeling like, okay, I shared a room with these people, but they're almost as inspired by your presence as you are by them, because they're looking at you as the future change makers for the world. And as a teacher and as a student of international education, that to me was probably the most powerful thing about this summit. Yes.
Translators and other language issues?
Great question.
Somebody answer it.
So it was pretty cool. So when we were in, I don't know if you guys remember, when we were in the first room where we got the cards, so you could either get to watch it in the room where they were speaking or in another room where it was being streamed to. They all had these, it's really cool. It's almost like a Bluetooth headset that you would use to talk in the car with like a hands-free device. And you could select whatever language you wanted it to be in. Obviously, I hope you pick it in English. So whatever they had to say, they had people translating it to the headsets. So everyone could listen personally to what they were saying in their own language. It was pretty well handled.
And is that true also in the information sessions and throughout the trip? You have the same kind of translation?
Yes, they did.
Yeah, I had a Lech Walesa. He didn't speak English, but he had a Polish translator that was there. So.
Yeah,
So,
it was.
yeah.
It's actually neat because going into this conference, we asked those questions and nobody really was able to answer them for us. So we just sort of had to hope for the best. And it's very well run. The whole conference is exceptionally well run. They have certainly accommodated for the fact it's an international conference. They've certainly accommodated for the size. You're asking about the size of the sessions. Our concern too is, what if I get to one and there's 100 people? But everybody really does a nice job of dividing up. And even as the adult, there were 4 chaperones. If there were 5 sessions or 6 sessions, it was completely, the security was wonderful to be able to say, all right, our kids are going to 6 sessions. We're each picking a different session and then meeting up afterwards. It's very, very, very well run, logistically speaking.
This is the part where I ask if there's any more questions.
As long as no one else is asking, do you have any idea how they choose cities? Is it major cities they're always looking for, major Western cities?
They're looking for cities. Our understanding of how they're choosing cities is they try to find a theme for each conference. So the theme in Barcelona was largely based around the Catalonian quest for independence.
Right.
So we have heard this year that there's a couple of options. They're looking at Bogota, Colombia, because of the peace agreement that the FARC will hopefully sign with the government. They're looking at Colombia because the Dalai Lama can get a visa there, which the Dalai Lama there's issues getting the Dalai Lama visas most places, but the Colombian government or Costa Rican government will give him a visa. They were considering Dublin, Ireland, because they wanted to put a highlight on the anniversary of the peace between Northern Ireland. They were considering Paris at one point, again, to sort of highlight that peace is possible even in the face of adversity. It was actually supposed to be in Atlanta last year, which is how we got hooked up with this. Because when we were approached and said Atlanta, we said, hey, no problem, we'll book some train tickets, not a problem.
We actually booked our
train tickets. Yeah. And then we found out that, it was in Spain, but the reason it was in Atlanta is because the Jimmy Carter Foundation was there and they wanted to do it there, but politics.
I would say, if you do plan on doing this, expect things to get
change.
Complicated.
Yes.
You're dealing with political individuals who are not accepted by all levels of traditional government. People who've won the Nobel Prize can be a little out there for some of the governments that may host this conference. And because of that, it does become a political football bounced around a little bit. So we were upended by this move from Atlanta. And it was around this time that our plans to go to Atlanta were upended. And then we were told we don't know where it is, then we were told Barcelona. So we had to go from planning a trip to Atlanta to planning a trip to Barcelona.
Over the summer.
And ask the board's permission and start fundraising because the cost was going to be significantly more. I mean, everything got upended. And I actually said to the students, what odds did I give us?
5%.
5%, then it went up to 10.
I gave us 5%
Brian
chance
had
of being
15.
able to go.
It peaked at 15%.
I just didn't think we'd be able to pull it off to take that many students to Barcelona for that many days. Well, the answer is they worked really hard, they fundraised. We were able to find amazing deals over there, and we had the support of our community. And when you take those things and you put them together, they had a life-changing trip. It was that impressive.
The one thing, especially as a parent or as the adults, or if you guys are conveying to your parents about this trip, is that what we found, and something we didn't really learn until we were over there, being the only high school delegation there, everybody else is college kids, we have greater concerns in terms of, okay, I need to know the name of the hotel. I need to know this. Where do the chaperones go? And it's being, as Sully was saying this earlier, it's largely run by the Gorbachev Foundation, and they're organizing and orchestrating accommodations and travel arrangements, not only for the delegates, but for the laureates. So we're emailing them saying, and I'm expecting there's tons of high school delegations, this is a simple question, and it wasn't until we got there and said, oh, now this makes more sense, because college kids don't actually need to know every single detail of where they're going. They're pretty content getting off of a plane.
Or when we said we need to know where the students are at all times.
And they were like,
why do you need to know
they're
that?
fine.
I'm like, the difference is we're dealing with minors while the colleges are dealing with adults.
Correct.
And that did change things because there were very few American high school students there.
We were in.
Yeah.
And you guys would double that next year, but it certainly makes it for a very interesting trip. But that being said, I think that, I think I told all you guys this, but when we were at the Rotary Club, David Ives, who hopefully you will have the pleasure of meeting if you come, he's the executive director of the Albert Schweitzer Institute and one who's orchestrating all of this, and he sits on the board of directors for the Gorbachev Foundation and helps to organize this summit. He told us that, first off, he formally invited us back, and he said a couple of times that people were coming up to him saying, oh, what university are they from? Because our kids, I'm going to compliment all of you while you're standing right here, were fantastic. I mean, it's a suit and tie event. It is business professional. I mean, you're up all day. You get to experience amazing things. But we were also complimented by one of the laureates because they prepared so well. Betty Williams actually separately said to David afterwards, like, who are they? Because they were fantastic, and they asked amazing questions.
Also, please don't be like nervous or scared. You're thinking, oh, there's college kids, there's kids from Harvard, and they know more than I am. But in reality, they're impressed with you because they're thinking, I'm 20-something years old, and these guys, they know what they're doing. They're prepared at some of 15, 16, 17 years old. I mean, you have nothing to be worried about. I mean, most college kids, instead of saying, oh, we're too good, we're too smart, they're going to come up to you. They're going to want to know. They're just like, wow, you're in high school, especially foreign college kids. Like, you got to do this in high school? That's awesome. And they're going to ask you all these questions, and they're just going to be amazed by you. They really are.
So were there any moments where there was sort of international political tension in the conference itself, and how did people deal with that?
Yeah.
It was really cool, honestly.
Great question.
How much time you got?
I don't know, I think Hunter might be the best bet for this one.
Tell them about your friend Oscar.
Yeah.
Oh, I was
there are a few countries there that are not very big fans of the American government and political system. So you have to accept that going into. There might be some tension, some America bashing, but for the most scale there isn't. And also you have a very distinction between people because you have activists as well as people that have held government jobs. So in you kind of have the more like happy kind of, oh, all weapons will be destroyed kind of more unidealistic group. And then you have the ones that held office that think, there's going to be nuclear weapons. We can't just have goals that are unattainable. We got to try to just reduce things like that. So sometimes they would clash. I mean, there was one big fight over President Ronald Reagan, but who's a hero of mine, between David Trimble and a man from India. And they got in a fight over his legacy with Gorbachev and things like that. So there's definitely, as there's tension in the United States over like Republican, Democrat, it's way worse. There's way more of it, it's way more interesting, and there's a lot more issues, and you always got to find yourself on an issue, and you always got to be prepared.
At one point, one of the laureates who didn't speak English, I don't remember exactly who it was, but they took their headset off because they were like, no. They were like, no, I'm done. They were so mad, and they had to like sit there for a second, and then they put it back on, and they kind of replied, but it was kind of funny. We were like, oh man, like.
What were they mad about?
I think it was de Klerk and somebody else, and they were arguing. I don't even remember. I have it We
I
all
think
took
it was
our
about
notes and stuff.
negotiating with ISIS. I think.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
that's right.
that's
Oh, wow.
probably it.
Yeah. There's a lot of tension. It's very interesting to watch. It's very interesting.
Yeah. How they interact with each other too is kind of cool. Like some of them who are, conflict, some of them were fine arguing and they kept a common, agreed and disagreed. Like a few of them got a little heated, and that was very fun to watch.
You mentioned the hotel. Is that something that was arranged at this end, or do all of the attendees stay in the same hotel? or-
Okay, let me just jump in real quick. So,
Just really quick.
go ahead.
I would like to preface, can we give a shout out to our administrators because they did a lot with this kind of stuff. Like they did a huge amount.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. I got news for you.
Also, our Board of Education was very supportive. We want to thank them and our whole community too along. We couldn't have done it without any of this.
So to answer your question, this is where it gets, I'm assuming you're a parent of someone going on the trip, this is where you're going to be asking questions of Gideon, and he's going to say, I don't have all the answers yet. And he will have them at some point. So what happens is we booked our airline travel without the assistance of a travel agent, because when I was calling around and doing all that, it cost more to go through a travel agent. So we called the airline directly and booked our seats directly there.
And booked travel insurance as well.
Correct.
So
Yes.
we did everything a
Yes.
travel agent would do.
Correct, including like dealing with passports and all that other stuff. So
Yep.
they handle the lodging arrangements. So they will contact you directly and say, okay, when they contacted us, they're saying, you're staying 5 of your nights in this hotel, you can either sleep 2 or 3 per room, send us the rooming list, send us your payment.
And by they, she means
Oh,
the
sorry.
people who run the conference.
Correct.
They
They're your
handle our,
intermediary.
I believe you could probably arrange your own lodging? No?
No, go with,
Yeah, go with them.
Go with them, because the thing is cool, like we were in the same hotel as Abraham Kita, for example.
Right.
Okay.
And also because the city gets so booked up so
Yeah.
fast wherever you are, you absolutely want to go through whatever they tell you.
It's, to answer your question, it's very complicated, and they're based out of Russia. And it wasn't the smoothest, I'll be honest, it wasn't the smoothest thing in the world. It was the thing that probably gave us the largest amount of fits. We didn't tell the students, but when we landed in Barcelona, we weren't exactly sure we had a hotel room for the first night. We knew we'd figure something out.
So they'd contact us and said, we can only give you a hotel, like the hotel that we booked you in, because we stayed an extra day is full. We can, and so working with David, and they said, okay, put them somewhere else the first night and then they'll move. So we had the name of the hotel, but the
Yeah.
problem is because of the time difference and language barrier, we hadn't actually paid them.
Right.
So we're in JFK, and we were the only 2 that knew. The other 2 chaperones didn't, they didn't. We're getting on a plane, and I'm like, we're about to take off, we haven't paid them, and we're about to land in Spain with 24 kids.
Right.
Like, what are we doing?
The reason it became complicated is very simple. We got there a day before everyone
Correct.
else because our attitude was if we're paying to go to Barcelona, we're going to sightsee in the city and give the students a cultural experience and not just the conference. So we, through our own desires to stay that extra day, complicated thing for the group that is organizing the hotel
But
rooms.
that being said, everything was taken
Amazing.
care of. We made them wait outside under the auspices that the lobby might not be large enough, so they wouldn't find out directly at the time if there wasn't a hotel room. And we walked in, they said, oh yeah, of course you're all set, you're totally fine. So it really was totally easy.
So other than the inefficiencies and the logistical issues, just in terms of the lines of demarcation for responsibility, you're saying that Gorbachev Foundation, whoever sets this up, they arrange for lodging.
Yep.
We
at this end are responsible for transportation.
Correct.
Yep.
And what about meals?
Meals, it depends on the year. We've been told that in the past, sometimes they provide lunch. This year, the only meals covered were by the hotel for breakfast. So you would have a break where we'd be able to, once we moved to the new hotel in the conference, we would go out to lunch, and then dinner, same thing. Kind of we'd walk and find a place and say, oh, I guess we're going to eat in this area tonight.
And as far as the sightseeing and things that you guys did
On our
around
own.
the program, that was
All on
all, you
us.
guys
Yep.
set that up, there's none of that stuff set up?
Nothing.
Nope.
Well, okay. This is important for you to know. They told us it would be set up.
Yeah.
Don't believe them.
No.
They told us that all the sightseeing would be taken care of by that organization that runs it.
Do it yourself.
We set it all up ourselves, and then when we got there, they said, oh yes,
It's just
we can't do that.
Yeah.
So they told us it would be set, we didn't believe them, and we were very smart not believing them. All the sightseeing that you saw, we set up for ourselves.
And arranged,
In
yeah.
truth be told, the only thing that I really felt that they were very good at was getting us the hotel room, and setting up the conference was amazing.
Yeah.
But a lot of it, to be truthful, we jumped in blind in a lot of ways. We said, kids, come with us. This is either going to be the greatest experience of your life, or it's just going to be, or we're going to find out something else. The answer to the question is, we won.
We
won.
Slam dunk. We're sitting
It
in the
was
morning
that great.
session. The first morning sessions, we're sitting in a room with Nobel laureates, and we turned to each other and said, the conference ended right now. It exceeded every expectation we had. In like hour one of the very, would you agree?
Yes.
It was amazing.
Look, I'll be honest with you. If you have the opportunity to take this trip,
Take it.
Take
Take
it.
it.
It's that good, and I'm not getting anything from saying that
Nope.
at all. So
No.
take it. It's that good. Anthony?
Life-changing.
Hunter?
Awesome.
Izzy?
Once in a lifetime.
Julia?
Inspiring.
Hey, yep.
There we go.
Nice. Well done.
And back there.
You're talking about like the hotels and airlines and everything. I'm just curious as to like the financial process and how everything is with money and that sort of thing.
You guys are going to figure that out on your advisors are probably going to have to come up with a plan. We did a lot of fundraising. We were able to raise about $8,000, $11,500. Okay? And that's the hard work on the part of the kids and the generosity of the community.
We offered financial aid scholarships and whatnot. The trip, I'll tell you that our trip per student, and this included transportation to and from the airport, a direct flight to Barcelona, every sightseeing adventure in Barcelona, one meal, because we paid for dinner that last night. Everything was $1,500 American. And then our kids brought €200 to cover like food and whatnot. And I think a lot of people went home with money.
Yeah.
I think
Almost
the
everybody.
smartest thing to do, if you're definitely talking about money, I would go to banks here, I think First America and things like that.
Well, it depends on where we're going.
Yeah. Oh, well, and if you know where you're going, try to exchange it for their money. Like my mom and my sister went as well, and she got €400 for the both of us here. So when we were over there, we didn't have to worry about exchange or anything. It made things a lot easier. I strongly recommend that every one of you guys do that.
Can I just chime in on the money issue? Because we don't know where the trip is going to be, it's difficult for us to project what the cost will be. And as Mr. Sullivan and Ms. Bryant said, there was a lot of fundraising done, and there was financial assistance offered to students who could demonstrate need. So as you'll see in the letter that was part of the application package, we really want to make it clear that financial constraint, financial limitations of individual students and their families should not be a barrier to going. We are going to do everything we can to raise money from the community, to apply for grants, and we're going to do our level best to make sure that everybody who's qualified to go, who takes the initiative, can go. So please don't let that be an obstacle to applying. We'll try to work it out.
If we're going to Colombia or Costa Rica, which is probably where it's looking like it's going to be, it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
And the cool part is, too, the other thing is just because, again, as a parent, to kind of, if it ends up being in Bogota, I'm going to Bogota this summer for 3 weeks. I have a fellowship with the State Department, so I'll be there ahead of time, and I'm going to meet up with David Ives while I'm there to sort of scope it out. So I can come back and be like, made it, know where we're staying, all good. Right? Yeah. So that'll be another thing. I can come back and sort of put everyone's minds at ease. Like, it's totally okay. Bogota's great. Bogota's great. Right? Right. Okay.
Any other questions? We're not in a rush. I just wanted to jump in on that issue of finance, because I know a lot of students were concerned about that. So.
Yeah, we offered full scholarships to kids that represented. So if you're thinking, I don't have the money, I'm never going to, please don't let it. I mean, your community will help you out. I mean, don't let that be a factor, because everyone, as he said, that's willing to work for it deserves to go, and it will change your life. So please don't let money be a factor in not going.
If you work as hard as you can, you're an administrator with fundraising, and you're out there, and you're working to get like this money with grants from the community, you'll be fine. It'll be hooked up.
People in the community really care a lot about the trip. When they heard that we were going, a lot of people chimed in and were like, wow, this is amazing. We want to be
And that's
involved in it
before
some
we even
sort
knew
of
what
way.
it was.
Yeah.
Like that's before we even could, we don't know. Are you going to do this? We don't know. And now we can come in and say, yes, this is exactly what we're doing. So
Your testimony is really powerful.
there's a question over here.
Yeah, so concisely, how do you think that it influenced the way that you view sort of international relations and peacemaking? I know that's a big question. But
Yes.
Just like
How
buzzwords,
concise?
you know?
Absolutely.
Every other word.
Okay, so I'm all about math and science. Like these guys can attest to it. I talked about prime numbers on the bus. People weren't too happy about it. So I guess you could say my worldview was pretty naive. I didn't really I'm into history. I'm into politics. I know what goes on. But to get to hear that firsthand, it changed a lot of my opinions on stuff. I think I was it's like, why do we have weapons? There should be none of that stuff. And then getting there and seeing and hearing people's testimonies. Like we got to hear from, oh boy, here we go. Far from concise, but we got to hear from a refugee, a Syrian refugee, about what it's like to move away from his homeland to try and find a place that's better. So like some of that firsthand stuff from both participants at the conference and the laureates themselves is absolutely powerful and definitely changed a lot in how I think about world politics should be run and how peace can be achieved. So yeah, a lot of changes.
See, I'm the exact opposite of Anthony. I hate math, I hate science, I hate all that. But I've been getting into political debates since my kindergarten teacher about the 2004 election. So I've been trying. No, I'm not. I've been prepared for that. But the interesting thing was whenever you think about politics, you just think about your country. So I thought, economic policies, social policy, issues like that. That's all I really worried about. And then I think a little bit changed when my dad was fought in Iraq. And then I realized, foreign issues, they affect everybody. They don't affect us. They don't affect just the people serving. They affect our country. And then when you go and you see it firsthand and you see the destruction, you see the Paris attacks, you realize, there were Americans there. I mean, these are Americans. This affects everybody. We're all, as weird as it says, we are all one people. We are all people. Do you know what I mean? We all deserve I believe, the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So when it's taken away, I think we have to be more, instead of nationalistic, more collective in our thinking. And we have to think we are one world and everyone deserves security and peace.
Well, on the Paris peace attacks, oh my gosh, okay, the Paris attacks. So when you hear about terrorist attacks in Europe and big countries like that, I mean, it's a different feeling than being there. Because you just see it on a TV or you see like a memorial, but when you're there, solidarity in countries, Barcelona is not that far from France. And we went through town hall, I think, and they had the French flag up there, and they had people who were praying. There was like candles, and it's really powerful to see the solidarity in the countries when that happens, and it really hits you because I don't know about you guys, but we made friends with like delegations from in France, and they were from Paris, and they were scared, and it really changes your view on these things.
Did you all get the gist? We were actually there when the attack happened. And we went from seeing the police officers having pistols on their sides to the next morning, machine guns everywhere. As the adult on the trip, we had to talk to a lot of parents and calm parents down. I think the kids were fine. It was the parents who were home that were very scared. Kids were nervous, but we had to do a lot of talking to the parents to talk them off the ledges because that's kind of scary when your kid is an ocean away and a terrorist attack happens. They handled it really well. They really did.
And the conference handled it very well,
The conference handled it well.
It was nice. We weren't sure if they were going to not acknowledge it, but the way that their acknowledgement
Or close it.
Or close it.
Close it. We weren't sure if the
And
conference would close.
everybody has an ID tag to get in. So it's very much like, I'm realizing I'm still wearing mine, but you have like a lanyard with an ID and they were checking so you couldn't get in the conference halls without it.
Yeah, I want to just add on to that. I know I'd never really been away from my parents for like more than like 2 days before, and when that happened, my parents were like really freaked out. But once they found out that we were okay, it was fine. But I don't know. At least for me, because that trip was like so amazing, I always say it like felt like a dream because it was so perfect. It didn't hit me until we really got back to like New York, and my parents like gave me the biggest hug, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, we were so afraid." And even when I got back to dance, like my dance teacher made signs and said, "We're so happy you're safe." It didn't hit me until we got back how like scary that actually is. And now that I think back on it, because of the time difference, and even we never really went on our phones, or we'd never turned on the TV or anything. The stuff that we found out was just through our chaperones, and they didn't want to freak us out too much about what would happen, but it was really, really scary. But I think everybody handled it really well. So.
Any other questions? Did you already say, how many attendees were there at the summit? I know very few high school students, a lot of college students. Who else was there, and what was the total number of attendees, would you say?
I think it was, what, 500?
I think there were 500 youth delegates that we,
Yeah.
there were 500 youth, which includes college. Maybe something like 1,000, 1,500, was that right?
That's
I think it was 1,500.
I think
Yeah, I think
1,500 total.
1,500 pops.
Yeah, because a lot of people, you don't have to be college students. There were adults there. There were people. One girl that sat next to me, her parent was one of the translators that worked with the phones to translate for people. So a lot of people were there for all different reasons. Some people were just curious that lived in Spain that wanted to come. Others were really motivated to come. It's a very diverse group of people, and it's really interesting to meet people from other countries and listen to their beliefs and things like that.
Any other questions?
You can always email us too with questions or whatnot. You can always direct it to our group.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to give a shout out. At the very beginning, I was a little bit camera shy, and I suddenly went blank. I know Ms. Bryant mentioned David Ives several times, who extended the invitation to Kingston High School. David Ives is a member of this community and very, very supportive of community activities, and I want to thank him as well for extending the invitation to Rhinebeck. Also, I want to thank our superintendent for being so supportive of our exploring this trip and planning for this trip, as well as the board green lighting it, and Dr. Davenport for all of his work. So there's a lot of people who are working on this to make sure this is a great experience as possible for everybody, and I want to thank them all. Also, I'm looking forward to our going with you. Perhaps we can even coordinate some of our travels so we can have some neighbors as company.
You guys can hang out with us.
You can show us the ropes. So thank you everybody for showing up today. Oh, last thing, before I forget. The application, the World Summit application, is posted on the Model UN website. So for anybody here who needs a copy, or anybody at home who wasn't able to be here who would like one, the full application is there on my webpage on the Model UN subpage. All right, so thank you very much.
Cool.